Hello, everybody. I am early today because it's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, everybody. So I will be trying to keep it to maybe 2 hours-ish because I got to leave for 2 o'clock. And anyhow, I still wanted to meet with you, have a little chat, see how you're doing, what's going on. For those of you who are new to my live chat, you have to be a subscriber for at least 5 minutes to comment. And please keep the comments friendly. And it's been great so far. So let's just keep it friendly. And no comments about controversial subjects. No topics about what happened in 2020 and that sort of thing. So other than that, everything else should be pretty good to talk about. If you're here, say hello and give me a thumbs up, say you like this video so that we can, get the algorithm going. And let me know what you're up to. Let me know what's going on with you. How has your week been? And what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about regarding truth topics and that sort of thing? Yesterday, I put out a video about two worlds, and it was fairly extensive. It took a long time for me to put together because I wanted to be thorough. And as soon as I started talking about it, I actually was just going to do a very simple whiteboard. Hey, Trixie, Katia. Yesterday's video was mind-blowing. Thank you, Katia. I was just going to do a simple whiteboard because I can't do computer graphics. So I had to draw it by hand. And so I thought, I'll just go old school and it'll be fast because I have so much information to get out. But I don't want to do a half job. I want to make sure I'm thorough. I want to make sure that the research is there and that you understand what I'm talking about properly. There's no point in doing it if it doesn't come across clearly and people don't understand what I'm saying. So I haven't gotten through yesterday's yet, but looks good. Thanks, Trixie. Eternal Being, hello. Hello, good morning. I'm working today, but listening. Nolan Owen, hello. Such a good video yesterday, Eternal Being. Thank you, and I appreciated your comments on the video. So thanks for telling me you're here. It's good to know you're here. Even if you can't comment, it's good to know you're here, because I like to know who I'm talking to, and it's good opportunity for us to have a dialogue and get to know each other better. I like getting to know the people who comment or watch my videos and comment, and over the years I've come to know many of you quite well. Ixie's here. She's come to say hello. Hi. So I was just going to keep a simple whiteboard video, but it wasn't sufficient. And so I left the whiteboard part in because I needed the diagrams to explain it, and then turned into quite a beast of a video. And I was going to keep going, but I thought, you know what, this is just too much. I got to stop it at some point, and it's just going to be overload. And it already is. It's a lot of information. But it's important. It's important because this helps you to see how the fractals work and how everything is just a fractal of the same thing. Like the gods and the planets and the Taurus language and the etymology and the story, all of it's the same. It's all one thing. Adam, I'm here but can't type. Great video yesterday. Thank you. I'm glad you're here, Adam. I was kind of, it's a lot of information, and it's not a topic that a lot of people talk about. I was actually surprised to see that Santos had talked about it, and it wasn't. I know I had seen those videos, back in 2017 when I first came across Santos, but it didn't register with me what he was saying. I don't know. He must know that that's what he was talking about, but it wasn't clear to me that he was talking about literally two worlds. So I don't know. Or if it was, it didn't stick with me or something like that. You know, when you watch something like it's not spelled out like that, it just sort of, you just sort of don't hear it, or it just doesn't click. Anyway, I found it fascinating that he did mention it. So that was kind of a gold mine. When I found that, I was like, wow, I didn't realize it was here, but I'm glad it is. Miriam, hello. I'm glad you're here. Excellent video. Thank you. So, yeah, like, I know it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to process. So I welcome questions about it. If you have any questions or anything you want to talk about, anything that you particularly liked about it. You know, some of you have mentioned some of the little things like the Eiffel Tower. That gave me a little chuckle when I realized that that's what it was. And then, you know, the headquarters and how that is literally referring to our brains and how there's 4 quadrants to the brain. And, you know, how all of these things are connected, the play on words, just the little things that the 88 gate was another one that helped connect a few dots for people. And, you know, this is where things start to get where I want to talk about it forever and ever, because one thing just leads to another, connects to another. And so, yeah, I could end up going on and on about it, and it's so much fun too when you see these things and you see how they connect. Like the Romeo and Juliet's balcony, to me, was so precious. That to me was just beautiful and mind-blowing at the same time for me. So yeah, if you have any questions or anything you just want to talk about it, we can do that here. Any synchronicities that have happened for you? I mean, I'm having a lot almost every day, which is unusual, I guess. Like, I go through waves, but for the last little while, it's been fairly consistent with almost daily synchronicities. And I'm hoping to get to a video, but I don't want to pause my progress on the Johnny Depp video. I want to get that done. And there's so many other little things that keep popping up that are distracting that could take me away from it. And I don't want to do that anymore. I got to finish that thing. It's really important, and it ties off of what I just posted with that video yesterday. So nobody knows. Hello. Glad you're here. So yeah, I mean, I can talk about that too. But I mean, I want to talk about what you want to talk about. So please, comments, questions, discussion topics, whatever you want to talk about, please leave a comment. I'm not here to just ramble. I'm here to have a conversation with you. So yeah, whatever you want to talk about. I will tell you about the synchronicity that happened yesterday. It was kind of interesting because I did not at first think that it was, this is how these things happen though. They seem natural. They seem like ordinary, everyday, normal things until you actually look at them. And you know, some of them stand out as weird, like the experience that I had in the Value Village that I shared with you in that last video with the street theater. That stood out to me because the synchronicities were there, the similarities were there. It was really odd. It was really loud. So this thing that happened yesterday, again, happened around my apartment, and I wanted to make a particular video about it, but and I hopefully will get to it. But anyway, I'll talk about it now because today being Father's Day, this is relevant. It happened yesterday, the day before Father's Day. And so what happened was I was just busy here working on my video, and outside my window, I heard a kerfuffle, an argument. This truck had laid into his horn, and so it was really loud. And then they started yelling in the street. And this went on for quite some time. I thought it would just be a short little spat, but it went on for quite some time. So I got up and looked out the window, and I saw my neighbor was arguing with this other guy in a black truck. My neighbor was in a silver car. And so I thought, well, maybe I should film this because this is my friend. She might need it. So I grabbed my camera and I filmed the whole thing. And apparently I caught it right at the action point. And I started filming at 9:56, which is reduced to 9:11. And then I noticed that my neighbor was wearing a Superman t-shirt. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. But he's always wearing this t-shirt. The other guy had long hair. And I heard my neighbor say that he was carrying a hammer, and he came at him with a hammer. And I later realized, when I was talking about this with a friend, I later realized, oh, who has a hammer but Thor? So this guy is symbolic of Thor. And so we have a fight, street fight between Superman and Thor. And I'll tell you now, Thor lost. And this happened yesterday, which was June 17th, 2023. And if you break out the numbers, it reduces to 777, which is heaven on earth. So 617. So 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 and 223 is another 7. And this kind of looked like, because the way that the Thor got beaten, he was down in front of a car. So from my perspective, it kind of resembled the incident with the George Floyd, which would be a twin. So there's been twins has been a big sync lately. And the day before, there was a traffic accident in Manitoba in Canada with a bus killing 15 seniors and a semi. And they're twinning this or comparing this to what happened in 2018 with the Humboldt bus accident that killed all of the hockey players. And then we had the apartment collapse that was twinned with the condo collapse from 2021 in Miami. So this is happening where things are being repeated and mirrored or twinned with something else. And I've had other synchronicities related to twin as well. And so the fact that this fight was between Superman, which represents Jesus, and Thor, which represents Zeus, and as I mentioned in the video yesterday, Zeus is the false god who is the god of the electric world. So Jesus is coming back. He's coming to kick some butt. So anyway, before this whole incident even happened, Thor was driving northbound on the main street in this city. It's not called Main Street, but it's the main street. So that's 33. That's the spine. Superman came across the intersection and Thor almost hit him. So we had a near collision, which is contact. And the breakdown I did of the apartment collapse, the breakdown I did of the smoke gets in your eyes on my second channel, was talking about contact, which has to do with the upper world coming in contact with the lower world, the two merging, the two becoming one, which is, Superman or Christ is the top. He's got to beat Thor in order to break through the barrier. So anyway, the whole thing was just hilarious. So yeah, that was my synchronicity that happened yesterday, and all of this happened the day before Father's Day. So yeah, this, I guess, is kind of like the fight that has to happen before the father can return. Nobody gets to the father but by me. Anyway, TZA, welcome. Love and appreciation that way. Hello. So yeah, that was my synchronicity, and my street theater, and the street theater just keeps happening, which is great. I enjoy it. I find it highly entertaining, and it keeps involving me, which is weird. But yeah, this place is bizarre. So yeah, anybody have any interesting synchronicities or anything to do with twins happening? I've also had synchronicities with dreams, like the word dream. And, we live in the dream world, so that has to do with the twin, with the twin of the other realm. So yeah, I don't want to move too quickly from subject to subject. I'm just trying to keep things flowing. So I'll take a little bit of a pause. If anybody has anything they want to talk about related to the video I shared yesterday of the two worlds or synchronicities, please leave a comment. Don't be shy. What was the other thing that was related to twin? Twin. Oh, yeah. The whole idea behind twin flames is another thing. We can talk about twin flames if you like. I know it's a heated subject. A lot of people like to talk about that. Now, the whole twin flame subject in the whole New Age context, I am not on board with. To me, it sounds like, I think they've confused, somewhere along the line, they've confused it with toxic relationships and narcissistic abuse. And that's not what I'm talking about here. We're talking about the twin, which is the other half of you from the other realm. So this is a big subject that I'm going to get into a little later, once I've gone through the other contacts, the other videos I have to get through, but I will be touching on it. And I did touch on it in the video on the key. So nobody knows. I have had dreams come up to think about it. Twins last week. Oh, cool. Okay, yeah. So dreams and twins has come up. I'm driving. Sorry to comment. That's okay, Trixie. Appreciate it. I'd rather you be safe driving than try to comment. Adam, my twin lives in an opposite hemisphere, literally opposite side of the world. We're born on Independence Day inside real. We're Gemini. So you're twins in twins. That's interesting. Yeah, like the twin. So there's twin worlds, and Gemini is the twin pillars, two merging into one. Well, I posted something about Volkswagen yesterday in Discord, and in your video it came by, which was a synchronicity for me. Yes, I did notice that you'd commented about that, and I was going to comment in Discord about it, but I had already put it in my video, so I thought, well, I'll answer your question in the video, so there's not really any point in me commenting. So, yeah. I watched your smoke video this morning after the Triangle series. I was reminded of the movie called Another Earth. I went to watch the trailer for the movie. The word contact came up right away. Yeah, I tried watching that movie, Another Earth, and it disappointed me. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Yeah, I thought about it as well in that context. But the movie that I found that was most beneficial in showing the two worlds was Upside Down, which shows the worlds sort of like this and the sky in the middle. And I mentioned that in the video yesterday. That one's the most helpful. There are a couple others that show it. And I can't really think off the top of my head. I know I've mentioned them before. W2 Worlds is an excellent show for this subject. If you haven't watched W2 Worlds, I highly recommend it. It's Korean with subtitles, but it is really well done, and it's very interesting. It's kind of a romance with some action in it, and sort of sci-fi-ish because it's about going between the two worlds. And it's such a good show. And I cried at the end. It was a really good show. It's on my watch list for sure. Eternal Being, Miriam. And since I dived into Vedic astrology, I noticed suddenly that I have a lot of Gemini twins around me who were Cancer before. Two Worlds is really good. Good, I'm glad you watched it. Yeah, I won't spoil it for you, but it's such a good show. Like the details in it, really, really insightful and helpful in understanding where we are and what's going on here. Now, take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, it is sort of dramatized, but there's a lot of truth in it. And same with. I watched Black Mirror, Joan is Awful the other day. Really, really, really good. Highly recommend watching that. Oh my God. There's so much in that. Basically, this woman who has a very kind of ordinary life finds that her streaming service, which is a play off of Netflix, has created a television show based on her life, and it starts to become very Russian Dolls type because it's a show within a show within a show within a show within a show, and they simplified it, but you can tell where it was going. I wanted it to go on and on and on to see where what the repercussions could be and how it would play out, but it was quite a short episode. It was like an hour. How does your video pertain to the metaphysical, spiritual, as well as physical? I'm sneaking comments in here. I talked about the metaphysical you're talking about the video I posted yesterday, right, Adam? I talked about it because it has to do with the merging of the two and the fact that the realm is an illusion. It's, the fact that it's like magic doors where you go in a door that takes you to the other realm. Like you go through the portal, you end up in the other realm. But whether you go down or up, you end up in the same place. So it's kind of like magic doors. And so in that sense, this idea of up and down is an illusion. Another movie I saw was As Above, So Below. That was really good too. A lot of truth in that. But I'll get back to that in a second. But yeah, I did talk about the metaphysical mostly towards the end, where I was talking about all of the things that have to merge. You have to merge on. I think you have to merge on 4 planes because we have fourfold nature, and So you have the sun and the moon that have to merge. You have the physical that has to merge, like the body, which would be earth, and the Mars, as I called it. Those two worlds have to merge. The mental has to merge, spiritual has to merge. So I think it has to merge on 4 levels. And I think Bill Donahue touched on this and interpreted it slightly differently. It doesn't mean it is different. I would have to go back and watch it though to see for sure. But I think he was talking about the 4 levels of alchemy. It could be related. It could be different, but my mind is connecting to that. So I don't know. I have to go back and watch. But yeah, I talked about the metaphysical. I mean, it's all in there. It's just because it's not really physical anyway. It's all metaphysical. Miriam, I liked Severance as well. Yeah, Severance is good too. It's a little bit different, but in a lot of these movies, you'll see that these people have a memory problem. Either they forgot who they are, they've had their memory wiped, and no matter what happens, every time they wipe their memory, they're desperate to get it back. They know something's wrong. They know something's missing. They automatically find it nefarious, even though they chose, like in Severance, they chose to have it wiped. So it's interesting how when you lose your memory, you want to get it back. And there's this sort of intuition that tells you that something is off. So I find that fascinating. I don't want to get too much into Severance because I don't want to spoil it for people, but it's worth watching for sure. And the thing about Joan is Awful is how it shows you how, I've talked about how we're inside a TV show and you can find your life reflected back to you in the television. So it showed that in a very literal way. It's not as literal as they show it, but they also explained how this program generates these TV shows in real time, which I believe I've talked about this. Yes, I have talked about this. When I make my videos, it feels as if they're being generated. The content that I'm using to put in the videos is being generated in real time, that everything is happening now, even though I was aware that they existed before. So it's kind of similar to that. So if you watch that, keep that in mind when you're watching it. Which is also connected to the whole idea of organic versus inorganic, the idea of artificial intelligence versus organic intelligence or consciousness. What's actually creating this thing? Are we in an artificial construct or is it an organic construct? Are we in an artificial one trying to go back to the organic one? If this is an artificial overlay, maybe. And, it could just be an artificial overlay of an organic nature. There's a lot of discussion around that, a lot of questions around that. And I find the synchronicities, the order, the impeccable detail is a little bit shocking. And the story, and, I can see it from both sides. I'm still on the side of the organic, but I can see it from both sides. So yeah, I also saw Event Horizon, and that was from 1997, which is a little bit, it was actually it still held up, but essentially I want to do a decode of that at some point, just a short one, because there's a lot of visual symbolism in there about the world that we live in, and it's basically a very negative or dark view of the realm we live in, where you have to face your fears and that sort of thing. But there's a lot of symbolism of the toroid in there, and so there's a lot of eye symbolism, there's a lot of cross symbolism, and there's a perfect representation of Uranus inside the gyroscope or the gyro soul. Perfect representation in there. So that's why I want to show it, because it will show you that that's exactly what it is. And that's the portal. So, I mean, it's just hilarious, some of this stuff. Like, I don't know. So is there anything that you've watched recently that you want to mention? Leave it in the comments. A lot of Gemini twins around me who were Cancer before. Cancer in itself is a bit of a twin because it's yin yang. And I've noticed too, I don't know, maybe you've noticed this, but, and I'll come back to the whole twin flame thing too. I've noticed that there's a certain type of personality that I'm drawn to. So I will have friendships with people who are in certain houses on the zodiac. And I noticed this before I even, got into the truth or knew anything about astrology. I really didn't know much about astrology for a long time. I still don't know. There's so much to know about it. I still don't know enough. But I did start to notice that I was drawn to certain types of people who were of certain houses on the zodiac, because their birthdays were around the same time. And I found that interesting. So that kind of caught my curiosity, because I thought, well, why is that? Why wouldn't I be friends with people who are born at different times? Why am I only drawn to these birth dates? I found that fascinating. That's true. So going back to the twin flame, twin soul thing, I came across, I've been doing some research on this because, and I did some research on twin flames and such years ago, and discarded it because of the toxicity, and there's a lot of misrepresentation, in my opinion. Hang on a second. Let me close this window because it's noisy. I find that there's quite a bit of toxicity associated with this whole twin flame thing. I don't know what you think, but simply because they tell you things like you're supposed to fight with each other, and they're going to challenge you spiritually, and one person will be the runner and one person will be the chaser, and you have this sort of toxic dynamic that's supposed to challenge you in your spiritual awakening. And so it justifies you thinking that you should be in a toxic relationship because it's good for you, which is no. It's so wrong on many levels. I mean, yes, you can you can be challenged by somebody who loves you in a healthy way. It doesn't need to be toxic, and these people don't need to run, and you don't need to chase them and everything. And so that I totally disagree with. And I think it's dangerous to be pushing that kind of belief. Adam, I'm Gemini, Cancer, and your twin. Nobody knows. Have you noticed people that you don't gel with in regards to zodiac? Yes, I have noticed that too. Not so much though, because usually if I don't gel with them, I don't get to know them so well, so I don't know what their sign is. But I noticed though that there's certain signs that I never encounter. There's certain signs that I just don't befriend. Like if I go through all of my friends and when their birthdays are, I think there's certain months where it's like, no, I tend to stay away from September, October. That kind of area doesn't really gel with me. December, January is another one. Hello, Ixie. March is iffy. April is a strong friend one for me. I tend to have friends, a lot of friends who are Taurus or, Pisces is not I don't gel with Pisces. But Taurus, Aries, I gel with those people big time because they're very cerebral, they're very heady. And Leo, I tend to gel with Leo. And although we kind of clash for attention because Leos are like, pay attention to me. And let's see, July. Yeah, that's about it, I think. Aries here. Hey, Bubscat. You rarely encounter a Sagittarius. Yeah, probably. A lot of fear too. There's a fear. Miriam, are you talking about fear in the twin flames talk, or is that on a separate issue? Because we got two conversations going here. Twin conversations. So yeah, in terms of twin flame stuff, I started to do some more research on it because I want to know, with all of the symbolism of twin that's coming up, I want to remain open-minded about it. But I think the question that I have right now is, are we supposed to find a twin in the physical? You know, whether is that a romantic twin, or, I mean, I think that it should be a romantic twin in that sense. Simply because of all of the information that I've found in this love story that we're in. So is this supposed to be physical, or is it just supposed to be within us? Is it just supposed to be Ixie, hey, come on, get out of there. Hey, Ixie, come on. That's a good kitty. Come on. Yeah. So is it supposed to be physical, or is it supposed to be within you? Metaphysical? That's the question I'm asking right now, because all the signs I'm getting are pointing to a physical manifestation of your perfect match, your other half. So I don't want to get carried away with that, and I don't want to make assumptions on it either. Ixie, get out of there. Come on. Hey. The other half of our soul in us, I feel like it's within us. Yeah, so I feel like it's within us, but a lot of the stuff has to play out in the physical as well, but to what extent and in what form. So, yeah, and also at the end of these movies, the two, you can't open the portal without your other half. So, and in a lot of cases, that other half is physical, and sometimes it is an illusion. So this is why I think that it has to be within us. So I just want clarification. I just want to be sure. I don't want to be misled. I don't want to assume anything. And just because I've been getting a lot of these symbols to do with twin in a romantic sense. So I feel it's within us, but the perfect match would be in the other world. Yeah, that's why I think that it is within us, reaching out to the other world. But if the other world is merging, I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm asking a question because of the messages I've been seeing, and that's what I wanna explore. And I'm not going to close the door on it and make assumptions. What is your opposite zodiac on the wheel? Opposite zodiac. I don't know. But I don't know what, I don't know. I know that we have our love relationships are with the signs beside us. Those are the ones we have relationships with most often. I feel like it's within. I'm in my 50s now and don't feel like dealing with it in the physical, so maybe I'm biased. Eternal being, I agree with you. I don't feel like dealing with it either. But this is why I'm remaining open. I don't want to be biased. I want to know for sure. I also don't want to be thinking, like it in a sort of hopeful sense that, oh, this is what it means, and this is my dream man's gonna come. No, I don't want to get caught up in that nonsense. It's dangerous thinking, and to me, like, that's what we went through in the old paradigm, the old thinking. So I don't want to close myself off. I want to remain open to possibilities. If this is what it has to be, so be it. If it's not, so be that too. I honestly do not care. I just want the truth. That's all. I just want the truth. But I know that the two have to be together to open the portal. You can't get through the portal without your other half. And what I suspect it is here's what I suspect it is based off of my research, is that he appears from the other side. And I guess for men it would be she, but he appears from the other side in a sort of apparition to unlock the door. Now, whether that is in the form of, like an apparition, as in like they're not really physically there, or take on the form of somebody physical, that's a possibility too, which I'll explain later. It's too much to get into right now. But bottom line is, it takes two. It takes two. And what form that takes, I don't know. But like I said, I don't want to close myself off. I don't want to get involved in any of that if I don't have to. But if that's what the path is, I will walk the path. Maybe merging the opposites in zodiac for wholeness, or maybe it can be both. I would very like to find someone romantically, so here's a hoping. Yeah, here's the thing. This is like a big discussion as well. And we've talked about love relationships in the live chat before. Maybe it's both and multidimensional. Yeah, I think there's many layers here that we're playing with, so it's not so straightforward. And I don't want to discount anything. And anyway, I do think you have to find it within first, period. Whether it materializes on the external or not is the question. Would it be nice? Sure. But I'm not going to get caught up in that as an earthly desire, put it that way. Because to me, the getting caught up in it in an earthly desire type of way is a trap. And I don't like talking about it in terms of trap anymore because that's kind of fear-based. But a trap in the sense that it keeps you stuck in the physical, it keeps you focused on the physical, and you can get sucked into the physical again, as opposed to dealing with getting out. So the potential is there for you to be fooled in thinking that if you're looking for your other half or your twin and someone comes along and they could fit closely, or they could be, I don't want to plant fear or anything. I just want to be realistic here. It could be an illusion. You could be imposing your desire onto someone and making yourself believe that this person is your twin when they're not. And, I don't think that that's a good thing for sure, because then you start getting caught up in all of the romanticized ideas and forming an attachment again to the physical. So you have to be somewhat detached from all of that, which is difficult. And yet everything that we're going through here is to do with finding true love. If everything here is about realizing that this world is lacking love, is it possible to find true love in the physical? Is that what we're supposed to do because it isn't here? You know what I mean? It's here, but it's underneath. So if it's underneath and we bring it to the surface, it would make sense that the whole thing ends with you finding your partner. And in what form? I don't know. So I hope that's clear. It can be kind of convoluted and confusing. But as above, so below, we always think linearly. But maybe it's both multi. I think I already said that. Where two or more agree, so shall it be. You stay attached. Yeah, you do. You just stay attached. So, it's difficult. I don't want to. It's difficult to not consider the idea that could be a trap. So I don't really subscribe to the whole, I guess, trap thing in a sense anymore, because everything is here for the purpose of your awakening. So it's only a trap if you choose to stay there. It's only a trap if you can't get out of it. If it's a lesson that you need to learn, then you need to learn it. You need to go through that. It's not a lesson I want to go through again. I don't want to go through, I don't want to go through any of that, the broken stuff. I don't want to go through the dramas and, the any toxicity, any negative experiences. I'm done with all that. Yeah, love is our way home, for sure. So yeah, I mean, yeah, like this whole twin flame thing is really interesting. The way people think about the twin flame thing is interesting. I mean, I can listen to some of it, not all of it, but some people have some very interesting insights relating to that concept. I do think, like getting attached to the physical stuff and chasing the physical stuff, it pulls you away from your purpose here, so getting caught up in this idea of finding a partner and settling down and having a family and buying a house and having a job and a career and all this stuff, all of that is basically is just to tie you to this world and make you believe in the physical as meaningful and something you're supposed, like these are the things you're supposed to do. So I'm perfectly content the way that I am. I'm perfectly content. And I think that it's ideal to remain open, not to be closed, and not to shut off your heart. So I think that's kind of where you need to be. So, yeah. Equally yoked. I don't know what you mean by that. So there's also there's some people who swear off relationships altogether. They don't want anything to do with people in a love relationship context. I know some people who are open about that, and they say they're never going to get involved with somebody romantically again. That's fine. But is it necessary? I don't know that it's necessary. There are plenty of people who awaken to the truth, who are married, who have love relationships. So I do think, though, if there is a danger, the danger is the attachment, and the danger is any family member or anybody you care about or love, you have this attachment to trying to wake them up, to trying to take them with you, to say, hey, here's a truth path. And if they're not coming with you, that can be very hard. It can be hard on your relationship. It can be hard on yourself and your journey. And it'd be very difficult for you to progress along the journey because you have to do it in secret, which makes you feel like you're lying to your partner, and that creates a problem as well. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're not supposed to be with that person. It's part of your story. So, I mean, there's plenty of people who are in love relationships. So I don't see why it should be something that you should cut yourself off from. But that's just my opinion. And anybody who believes that they shouldn't have one, they're entitled to that too. But I don't know of like any law that says you shouldn't. I don't know of anything that says that you can't. What's your opinion on that? What do you think? So I think too, like this idea of wanting comes from lack. So if we're in a situation where we want something from the physical, we feel that we lack something. We lack that thing that we're searching for. So if we're wanting a love relationship from the external, then obviously we've got to give that to ourselves first. So I think that if it happens in the physical, yeah, so be it. That would be great. If not, so what? That's fine too. But I'm not going to go seeking it. I'm not seeking it because I don't feel I lack it. And I think that's kind of where you need to be, is this neutral place where it would be nice if, but I ain't going to look for it. And if it comes, great. If not, that's great too. I have plenty to keep me satisfied and fulfilled in my life. And I don't feel that I'm missing something if I don't have it. If you feel you're missing something, then you're missing something within that you need to fulfill. And then the right person will come along if you're meant to have someone come along, if it's even something you want. So Adam. You are what love is. Yes. Love is a state. It is who you are. It is what you are. I have a relationship and my partner does not follow me. I'm fine with that. Well, Miriam, that's a great place to be. It's difficult. So, kudos to you, because it's very tough. And I know a lot of people who got divorced because of the truth. So the fact that you're still together and you're okay with it is really good. Because it can be hard. Adam, snogging your mirror as you speak. Well, that's some really great self-love there. It can be, but mostly for him. Yeah. I mean, it can be hard for you too at first, but once you get to the place where you're okay with it, it's not hard for you anymore. It's when you're in the phase of, I got to take him along with me, and then it can be hard. And if you're at peace with it, then it's not so bad. If he doesn't know about it, then it can be very hard. If he knows that this is your path and you're on it and he doesn't agree with it, that's easier, because then you don't have to lie. It's also just difficult when you have to lie and hide what you're into, what you're interested in. So, kudos to you that it's like that for you. True, same for my children. Yeah, children is another one that's difficult too. You just have to get over that hurdle. So we were watching your video together. Oh, that's so sweet. I love it when families wake up together, because I hate the idea that truth tears families apart. So when I hear that families can watch truth videos together and families wake up together, I think that's really precious. So I'm really happy to hear that. Halfway he was gardening. Well, at least he listened to some of it. Adam, I hardly tolerate anyone other than myself. I've always been told I don't suffer fools lightly, but I'm thinking I need to suffer slightly later. Yeah. You know what? I mean, it's difficult. Like, I enjoy other people's company. I do. And I was talking to a friend about this a little bit yesterday. It's fine to spend some time in the company of others who are not awake for a limited time only, because you can only stay in that world for so long, and then it becomes intolerable. So my time span that I can spend in this other world that I used to live in, the mundane world, is shortening. And I can only tolerate, short bursts, several hours at a time, and then it starts to become a little bit difficult. So the longer that I would be in that mundane reality type of thinking, the harder and more intolerable and painful it becomes. So yeah, I prefer being alone at the moment. I enjoy other people's company. I enjoy talking to other people. But I also enjoy my own company. And I think a lot of that comes to being able to control your environment a little bit better, because I get to dictate where I go, when I go, what I think about, what I talk about, what I read, what I consume, all of that. I don't have any outside influence trying to interfere with that. And I enjoy that, especially with the truth. I mean, when I used to work in background, I enjoyed the job a lot because of the social aspect. I got to meet a lot of different kinds of people, intelligent, creative people, and it was a lot of fun. Now, I don't know that I'd be able to tolerate that for very long. And while I was, after the truth, I guess, like post-truth, I spent most of my time sort of keeping to myself. I found it difficult to talk to people because all I wanted to talk about was truth, and most people didn't know about it. But towards the end, before 2020 came along, there were more and more people who were waking up. So I had more people to talk to, and that was a tremendous relief and a joy. It was such a joy to talk to them. So, yeah, I can talk to most people. I can talk to almost everybody, almost anybody. It's just the amount of time is selective, especially now. Like, I used to be able to talk to most people and want to talk to most people. Now I don't. I'm more selective about where I put my time and energy. And like, I'm polite to most people and friendly to most people, even if I don't really like them, just to, just to get along. But I don't get involved. It's just too draining. I don't want to get involved. And, some people might take that as, I don't really care how they take it. I have to preserve myself and my energy and where I direct my attention. And I'm tired of other people assuming that they're entitled to my time and attention. It's like, no, you're not. I choose where it goes. If I want to spend time in your company, I will spend time in your company if it's available. Other than that, you don't have a right to demand that you take my time and attention. So, yeah. I love being in this world, but sometimes in the mundane gives some joy too. Yes, I agree with you. We do need a break from time to time. Sometimes listening to truth or reading about truth, it becomes very overwhelming, and we need a break. And for me, my break comes from, I kind of like get a bit of a touchstone, I guess, like a grounding. I will go to a shop, but it's like a secondhand shop or thrifting or grocery shopping or, maybe browsing Winners or something. Like, but I don't enjoy it as much as I used to. It's just sort of like an activity. Or I'll go, for me, I prefer going to sit in the park. I think I got some sun yesterday. I'm gonna sit in the park and I do puzzles. I like to do logic puzzles, and I'll sit in the park or I'll read my book, and then I'll go to the lake and I'll sit there. So I'm in nature and outside getting some fresh air. I'll go for a walk or a run, and that gives me a bit of a break. So we're all, going to hang out with somebody whose company I appreciate. That's why I listen to you. No one around me, the crazy person. Adam, I get ruthless with my attention and empathy. I used to think you need to give everyone energy, but realized it should be earned, and equally I should earn others' mutual respect, but not mutual attention. Well said, Adam. Yeah, I mean, I used to feel that it was polite and friendly to, direct my attention to, especially to anybody who wanted my attention. If they came to me and said, hey, I want to talk to you, and I didn't really know them that well, I would direct my attention and engage with them and talk to them, answer their questions. And then there was one point where I realized that I don't need to answer people's questions, because we think it's polite. If someone asks you a question, you think it's polite to answer. And I realized at a certain point, I'm like, hang on a second. I don't want to answer your questions. What right do you have to ask that kind of question? I don't know you. It's kind of a personal question, and I don't want to answer it. So, yeah, I think it seems strange that I would have to realize that, but I was just a very honest child and felt that it was easier just to, if somebody asked me a question, it was just easier to answer it and answer it honestly. And the revelation where I was like, hang on, I don't need to answer your question, was kind of a big one. And yeah, I know, like, a lot of people take a lot of leeway with that kind of thing. There was this man I worked with who kind of gave me some creepy vibes. He was my boss, and he took me to this work event, and before we went to the event, we went out for a drink because we were early. And he started asking me personal questions, and he said, like, he asked me if I had a boyfriend, and I was shocked. I'm like, it's not none of your business. It's nothing to do with work. And he said, you can tell me it's none of my business. So I said, it's none of your business. And then he was shocked that I said that. I'm like, dude, you literally just told me I could tell you it was none of my business, none of your business. So why are you shocked that I told you that? So yeah, you don't have to answer people's questions just because they ask you one. That way, it does say very few find the narrow path. It's the narrow one, that's for sure. Yeah. People will vampire that shit. Yeah. Yeah, like there was an acquaintance I had at work, on set, and we had to work together quite often because we were booked together on the show for continuity. And at first I liked her. She had a fiery personality. She was really interesting. She's entertaining to listen to. She was this sort of cute, petite Latina girl who was, she had quite an interesting personality. She'd done quite a lot of things. She was interesting to talk to, and she was fun. However, it got to the point where she was an energy vampire, and she wanted to just suck and suck and suck all my energy and control. And so there was like narcissistic tendencies there. And I thought, well, this is just really toxic. And at one point I blew up at her, and she didn't like that, of course, but she needed to be told to back off because it was just like invasive. And there was one time where I realized that she was a vampire because I was talking to her, and when I came to work, I was in a really good mood and sat next to her, which I didn't want to do because I kind of had a sense that she was a vampire. Anyway, I sat beside her, and within 5 minutes, she had drained all my energy and turned me negative. And I was like, what the hell just happened? How did this happen? So when I realized what she had done, I got up and moved, and I didn't sit next to her. But, that's what these people do. It's like I had not protected my energy. I went in there open because I'm, naive about it, and just I kind of have this idea that people are nice. They're not. Not everybody's nice. I mind my business, and I dislike giving my business out. I'm very private. Sometimes I hate being asked how I am, like, what's it to you? Again, slightly lighter. Adam, I'm the same way. I'm very private, and but I'm also very honest. And if somebody asks me something, I'll give them an honest answer. And if I don't want to talk about it, I'll just say, some sort of polite sort of, hint. Hello. Yeah, I'm not interested in continuing this conversation. When people ask me how I am, I usually say, do you really want to know? Then they laugh and shy away. Yeah. Usually they don't want to know. It's just a polite turn of phrase. So yeah, you don't really want to know. When someone asks me how I'm doing, I just give it back to them. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing you can do. You can turn the conversation onto them in a positive way. You can do it. You don't have to make it negative. But like, if somebody asks you about you and you don't want to talk about yourself, you can just politely redirect the conversation and say, "Oh, it's going really well. How about you? How are things going with you?" And then just keep the conversation on their side, because people like talking about themselves. And you can do it in a positive way, in a genuine way. It's not manipulative. It's just, I don't want to talk about myself, so let's redirect onto you. Let's keep the focus on you. Vampires typically invade your personal space too, like get really close physically. Yeah, they do. And not even just physically, but physically and energetically. Like when I was telling you about this woman I was working with, she was invading my energy body. Like I could feel her just like reaching in and going, I'm gonna take that. Thank you. Even if I'm doing great, I just get prickly, usually for those I have low tolerance for. If I get on with someone, I'm happy to share. Yeah. If you get on with someone, it just flows. It flows really nicely. And if somebody starts to get either, vampiric or personal or invasive, and or hostile and antagonistic, you just put a wall up, and it's just like you get, like you said, prickly and defensive, and it's just like, well, why are you? Because you don't want to be rude, right? And I think that's part of the problem, because the person who's talking to you isn't being rude per se. They're just asking questions, and sometimes they might be being rude, but you're not really sure. And so to sort of just come out and say, hey, I don't want to talk about that, is a very sort of abrasive response that might be taken the wrong way. And it's like, well, I don't want to offend you, and I don't want to upset you, and I don't want to get into a fight or an argument, but I really don't want to talk about that. And we should have some sort of response that is a acceptable, like, it's not really something I like to discuss, or it's not really a topic I'm comfortable discussing, or I don't really have anything to say about it, so I don't talk about work or whatever it is that you don't like talking about. But yeah, I find, generally speaking, a lot of people in the mundane like to talk about mundane things that I don't like to talk about, especially personal mundane things. Asking me about my relationship status is none of your business. Asking me about work, don't want to talk about work. Asking me about, like anything personal, it's not really something I want to talk about. If you're a friend of mine, that's different. If you're just an acquaintance, or somebody I bump into on the street, why are we talking about this stuff? It's like generally accepted as small talk, but to me it's not small talk anymore. It's invasive. Like, yeah, because you asking me this question is going to lead to me saying something about truth that you're not going to like, so I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, protect your data. For sure, for sure. People are like cookies. Bite them once and they crumble. Internet cookies. Okay. Well, speaking of, I don't know, that sounded to me like it was a setup for a joke. So it tied back to knock knock, which was last week. You posed a knock knock joke. So this reminded me of the other synchronicity that I had yesterday, which was knock knock, and you had shared an image that had knock on it, or knocking, and I was watching the portable door. It's okay. It's not really full of truth or anything, but there's little gems in it. And so in the Discord group, we've been sharing pictures of things that are at the flux capacitor. It contains a flux capacitor. So the angle of the triangles is what we've been sharing. So like Superman bearing his chest with the S reveals the flux capacitor, Teen Wolf flux capacitor. So anyway, this movie that I was watching, and it was called The Portable Door, had the flux capacitor at the back, one of the on the wall. It was their emblem. And there were another couple things in there too. Like they had the gyroscope was in there, and they had like the whole thing was called The Portable Door, which is kind of dumb because it wasn't really about the portable door. And they found this portable door, which was on a towel. And so they had sewn onto the towel the directions to call up the portable door. And it said say knock knock and it will bring up the door. So I think that was part of the clue, because what we have been sharing in Discord was the flux capacitor, which is the portal, is the fornix, which is it's the casing for the black hole. And so that's like the fornix is like the vault, which is the what is it called? The gyroscope. It's the flux capacitor. Anyway, it doesn't seem logical that it is all of these things, but it is. So we've been talking about that. We've been talking about the keyhole, the key, the flux capacitor, and the portal or the door. And so then it seems logical that, knock knock comes in, and twin, and dream. So all of those synchronicities that have been coming up lately, they're all connected. They're all connected to knocking on heaven's door to get out of here. So I thought that was really interesting. Yeah. Those are all symbols for the exit to get out. So yeah, you were mentioning protect your data, and that kind of reminds me of the saying from the Bible, not casting your pearls before swine. And so, trying to tell somebody who's closed off about the truth or some truth is pointless. There's no point in trying to convince them or tell them or anything. And one of the things that I was talking with a friend of mine about yesterday was the bus accident in Manitoba. We were decoding it, and hopefully I get to be able to decode this thing because it was really interesting. And the codes that we were finding, it's not obvious in this accident, but the codes are there. So I find it really interesting when I come across an event like that is not obvious. Just like the street theater I was talking about with Superman and Thor. It wasn't as obvious. It took a while for me to see it. And because I don't want to assume that it's all street theater. Maybe it all is, but I don't want to assume that. But when I see that it does contain a story and it's tied to everything else that's going on, then it is street theater. So this event that happened, this bus accident, it wasn't as obvious, because most of the obvious ones will have codes in it like 33, or they'll have codes in it that are like, I don't know. Can't even think of anything right now, but anything like super obvious that tells you that this is, or maybe the guy's name is Christopher, or something super blatant. This didn't have that. The only thing that was kind of blatant was that it happened on the Trans-Canada Highway. That was pretty blatant to me. But yeah, the codes were a little bit more subtle. And I'm fascinated by those particular events because they're subtle. So what my friend said is that, when you're climbing Jacob's ladder, it narrows at the top. So it's almost like fewer people will be able to see those codes because you have to get to that level to be able to see them. You have to be able to see that they're there. And if they're not obvious, then only the people who can see beyond the obvious ones will be able to read the codes in it. And so I find it really interesting when you see it in those types of events as opposed to the really obvious ones. So the other day I noticed the train near my house, I noticed that it drives through a sign with 8 on the left and a sign with 8 on the right. Well, there you go. I mean, the signs are everywhere. And when you start to see them, it's kind of shocking how they are everywhere. Even in, like when I was talking about Romeo and Juliet's balcony and the hourglass, like the shape of the hourglass, like little simple things like that we take for granted that we think don't mean anything. And one thing that I find particularly shocking, like 9/11 emergency, in case of emergency, break glass. These sorts of things we kind of take for granted. We don't think much of it, but they actually have a lot of significance and they mean something, and they're clues. So it's like, you tell somebody who isn't aware of these codes and clues that in case of emergency, break glass and what it means. It's like, well, they won't see it, but it's there. It's hidden in plain sight. It's right in front of your face every day, almost in every building. So, and even in a school, we're taught about it. We're told that we have to go through a fire drill. It's like in the case of a fire, we go through this fire drill, and so the teachers will tell you, well, here's the what's it called? The fire extinguisher, and here's the fire alarm, and it says right on it, in case of emergency, break glass. So I remember even when I was a kid looking at that thinking it was weird, and I don't know why I would think that it was weird, because it isn't really weird, but I did think that it was an odd thing, an odd phrasing. In case of emergency, break glass. I don't know. It's not really odd, but then I thought it was. I'm starting to think all these events are staged, like every single one, so I enjoy looking for the codes. Yes, they are. Like, every single one. I mean, when I see that the thing that happened yesterday outside of my window was street theater. It involved my neighbor. The guy actually got pummeled. He actually got hit. But it was staged street theater. So that's just as fake as anything on the news. And yet the guy actually got hit. So, weird. How do you get out of here? Has anyone gotten out that you know of? Dante Berry. Well, I say in my videos how to get out. How would I know somebody who's gotten out? Because they wouldn't be here. How am I going to know someone who's gotten out? But I know how to get out. So nobody knows. Here listening, just cooking. Well, I'm glad you're still here. Adam, the day I walked up Jacob's Ladder last week was the day of the Nottingham attack, which was rather obvious. Yeah, it was. And what if it's all you projected outwards? Dante, great name, Dante's Tower. Yeah, it is a good name. Yeah, it probably is all you projected outwards. But to what distance? This is what is kind of confounding to me. Oh, I watched that movie with, it was called Hypnotic with Ben Affleck. That's a bit of a mind trip. I can't talk about it without spoiling it. So I suggest you go watch it. But this idea that, there's an infrastructure, and our mind is projecting everything around us aside from the basics of the infrastructure. But how many people are here? How many people are real? And who are we interacting with? Are we, because you could think about it like we're somewhere wearing interactive glasses or something in some sort of computer game. And it's like we're wearing these virtual reality lenses. You could think of it that way. And so all of this stuff, there's nothing here, but we just we visualize it. And because we believe it's real and we haven't taken the lenses off, it's real to us and tangible to us. But there's the idea of, as well, that we're dreaming all of this. So how does all of that fit into the two worlds? So anyway, that's a huge discussion. Eternal being, I reluctantly moved to Phoenix this year. It just dawned on me my new room is upstairs with an arched window and a Romeo and Juliet style balcony. Excellent. Well, yeah, there's a lot of things that happened in my life that unraveled like a play, or, I've said that we are the gods and your life is reflected back to you in the TV and in the myths. So you are living out a play. So, there's that. But going back to going up Jacob's ladder, that was interesting. Now, how did Adam, when you went up Jacob's ladder, how did you find that? Was it by accident, or did you know it existed and you said, I was going to go climb up Jacob's ladder? Did you just how did you come to find that place? So that Nottingham attack, that was pretty interesting too. And what was it? Some sort of event that happened in the middle of the night. Some people were attacked, and the streets had significance. One was called I forget what it was called, but it was playing off one of your synchronicities that you're mentioning in Discord. And I think it had to do with gold or money or something like that. I forget now. But that too wasn't overly obvious, really. Yeah, there's Magdala Road and another one. It was an intersection of Magdala and I don't know, something play, or I forget. It was one of your synchronicities. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. It was by accident when I first found it a year or two ago. It blew my mind. Oh, cool. Pac-Man Moon Matrix. I guess you could look at it that way. Now I revisit as often as possible. That's a good idea. It looks like a nice place to go for a hike. But, I find it interesting how the clues are everywhere. And, like our cities and streets and countries and everything are all clues. They're all, everything's all a clue. And it's totally, we live in like some sort of game or puzzle, or, uh, it, whatever it is pretty genius. I'm going to say hi to my father now, so wish you all good continuation. We'll listen later. Have a very nice day, everyone. Enjoy. Have a happy Father's Day. Thanks for tuning in, Miriam. It was a pleasure. Adam, it goes up a mountain called Kinder Scout. So I use it to remind me to be my inner child, find my inner child. Kingdom of heaven is to those of the heart of a child. Oh, that's good. I like that. Yeah. This is one thing that I like. I like hearing the little things that people do. So if you have something that you want to mention, I'd love to hear it. But like the little things that people do that are part of their awakening or ascension process, like you were just saying about reminding yourself of your inner child. And last week you mentioned about being an honorable man. So, I really like hearing about these little things. And I mean, maybe some of them are bigger things, but, we talked about eliminating certain things from our diet, but I really appreciate hearing the things that people are doing to better their spirit, better their soul, and become a better person. And those sorts of things are very interesting. It's kind of easy to eliminate things from your diet or physical things and say, well, I don't go to the clubs anymore. I don't go gambling anymore, or all of these sort of toxic behaviors are easier to eliminate from your life. You cut people out of your life, but the harder thing to do is to change your behavior, to change how you see the world, to change the smaller things of, okay, well, I'm going to focus on becoming an honorable man. I think that's a really beautiful thing, and a very simple thing in a lot of ways, because it's such a focused thing. It's like, okay, this is what I determine is an honorable man, and that's what I'm going to be, and that's what I am. You've identified what your I am is, and it's not really a very easy thing to do. That's part of the inner journey. The outer things are very important too, changing your diet, and that can affect your inner self as well, because those things can prevent you from being in touch with your inner self. Like if you're living a very toxic lifestyle and very low vibrational lifestyle, those things will definitely interfere with the inner. And some of those things are hard to eliminate. Some of them are addictions or soothing comforts, and so some of them are harder to eliminate than others. But I think the even harder thing to do is to change or improve your character and improve your sense of self and those sorts of things. And perhaps more or less just focus on your better qualities and eliminate some of the negative qualities, or the qualities that you don't want to associate yourself with anymore. It's not easy in a dishonorable society, but it gives me fuel to be even more honorable, be the change, and don't let yourself down. Yeah, and you know what? If you do let yourself down, don't be so hard on yourself, because, like you said, it's not easy. But one of the things that I'm working on is not being so hard on myself, because I've realized that I'm very hard on myself. And like you were saying about not suffering fools, I don't suffer fools, but I'm also very hard on myself, in the sense that if I don't like to not finish something, I don't like to say I'm going to do something and not do it, and I also don't like to get things wrong. I don't like to. So I pay attention to details, and I make sure that I stand behind what I say, that I try not to say things I don't mean. I try not to be flippant about certain things. I mean, there's times when I get caught up in ego, or I don't know what to say, and get all flustered and start saying stupid stuff. There's times where that's happened in my past, and I'm conscious of it now, so I try not to do that. And it's not like I don't say things that are damaging. I just say superficially stuff, like stupid stuff, that I'm like, why the hell did I say that? It just doesn't make sense that I would say that. But it isn't really important stuff. It's not like something that's going to hurt somebody, or something that's going to that's wrong or anything. It's just more or less like a gap filler. And so I try not to do that anymore. I'm trying to be more comfortable with silences, where a lot of times, because here I am sitting here talking to you for 3 hours, I got to fill the air, otherwise you get bored and don't want to listen. But I've watched live streams with people who sit there and say nothing for about 20 minutes, and I'm like, okay, maybe I can learn from this. I can learn from them being comfortable with their silence and not needing to say something just because they're on a live stream. But for me, I feel like, well, I'm here for a reason. I'm not here to just sort of suck away your time and sit here and say nothing for 20 minutes. You're here to be part of a conversation. So, I still have to fill up the time with things to say, and I want them to be meaningful things. I don't want to say nonsense, but sometimes, it gets very difficult to come up with things to talk about, especially if the comments aren't so abundant. It sometimes gets difficult, and I'm learning to be more comfortable with silence, and I'm learning to be more comfortable with taking pause if I need to. These sorts of things don't come naturally to me. And so, those little things, they make a difference. I like it because it's new, because it's different, and it's slightly uncomfortable. Like I was saying before about, it was natural to me to automatically respond to a question with an answer, and an honest answer. What was not natural to me was to say, hang on, I don't have to answer that question, and then not answering it. So part of it is recognizing that, hey, I don't have to do this. The other part of it is changing the behavior. It's like figuring out I can change my behavior to this instead, and trying it on and testing it out and saying, this is okay. I was uncomfortable with it before, but I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with it now, and it's actually okay. So, and also asking yourself, why do I feel the need to do that? If somebody asks me a question, why do I feel the need, why this sort of obligation to answer it honestly? There's like this unspoken contract between people where we feel obligated that if someone asks us a question, it implies that it deserves a response, but it doesn't. Not in every case. Like if you have an agreement with someone that you're friends with, then yeah, you enter into an agreement of a conversation that you're having together, and you're having an honest conversation, then yes, your question deserves an honest response. But there's times where you don't have to answer the question. You don't need to. So asking yourself, hang on, why do I do this? Why do I do this behavior? And do I need to do it? And what can I do instead to change it? And even if you don't need to change it, it's not a bad thing. It's not a toxic thing. It's not hurting anybody. Maybe it's hurting you, because instead of saying, hang on here, I'm setting a boundary. I don't need to answer that question. You're recognizing that you need to set a boundary of where people can stop invading your privacy and stop asking personal questions where they have no right to. So that's what you can draw from that. So there's other things like that where, feeling the need to fill the gap instead of letting the silence speak. That again comes from trying to fulfill this obligation or a contract of an assumption that I have to deliver X, Y, Z. I have to be entertaining. I have to not be boring. I have to please my audience or please my viewers and please the people who came to talk to me or listen to me, which in some sense, yes, that's kind of why you're here or why I'm here. But, to talk for 3 hours about something, it's not easy all the time. And it should be acceptable for me to take a pause and say, you know what? Right now, I'm out of things to say, and that's okay. But, it's, again, comes back to me being hard on myself and having to say, okay, I don't have to put that pressure on me. I don't have to live up to some unspoken obligation that I created. I created this obligation. So let's let it go. You said it, Ixie. Stand in the truth, it never loses. Very true. Nobody knows. Adam, those valuable lessons are learned practically, so we have to be kind to ourselves because we don't know how to be until we have been. Yes, very true. Yeah, so not knowing that you haven't been kind to yourself is interesting insight, because I didn't know. I only knew when, I meditate and I talk to my higher self or my guides, whatever you want to call it. And they have unconditional love, no judgment whatsoever. And part of what I get out of talking to them, through meditation, is understanding what it's like to think that way and to live that way. And it's not impossible, but it's difficult here. And when I say something like, I really messed up today or whatever, and the answer I get back is, no, you didn't. This was meant to happen. It's perfectly acceptable. There's nothing wrong with what you did. There's nothing wrong with any of it. There's nothing wrong with what you did or what you said or how you said it. whatever the instance was, they give this sense of reassurance and acceptance that I wasn't giving myself, and this need to live up to some sort of standard of behavior or standard of how I'm supposed to be, or who I'm supposed to be, or what is acceptable, or you're trying to be, like if you're trying to be honorable, or you're trying to be kinder, or you're trying to be a better person, and you come short, and you only come short in your own perception of what that is. And so our mind is like, well, you failed. You punish yourself. You call yourself stupid, or you should have done better, or whatever. There's this litany of things that you can attack yourself with criticisms of how you failed, or how you didn't do what you set yourself up to do. And this can come in a lot of different kinds of forms, but I'm also learning to let myself off the hook for certain things, that even if I do fail in something, like say, for example, I decide I'm going to go on a diet, and I do well for the first 2 days, but then the third day I cheat and have something that I said I wasn't going to have, but I end up having it. And I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. Well, you did. So don't punish yourself a second time by making yourself feel bad about it. Just say, okay, this isn't the plan, and we can get back on track. It's not a big deal. It's not a big catastrophe. Nobody died. Nobody got hurt. Don't worry about it. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not really a big deal. So you just get back on track tomorrow. And it's the self-talk that you become aware of, that talking to my guides and whatnot. I don't like to call them that because I don't really see them as guides, and it's kind of new agey talk. But there's this sort of this unconditional love and acceptance and lack of judgment that I appreciate feeling that, and trying to implement that, not just on myself and my own thinking, but on how I view the world and other people. It's very hard, but at least I'm trying, I saw, I can't read your name. Riardicus? I don't know. I can't read your name. I saw twin flames coming out of the back end of a Nissan once. Good. You do very well. Thank you. Thanks that way. It's very kind of you to say. Adam, boundaries are potentially difficult to impose, but typically only done once someone has crossed them. Once in place, on the whole, there is an understanding of respect. If there's contempt, it's on them. Yeah, boundaries are tough. It's like if you set a boundary and the other person doesn't respect it, just walk away. I had to do that, and it was revealing, because so this is okay. I don't want to get back into talking about narcissists, but it's relevant. So I brought up a boundary that I had with my friend, and on the surface it seemed like a very small thing, but it wasn't. It was, I want you to be respectful of my time and stop asking me to come over last minute. And I've asked this of my friend a few times, and the first couple times, she said she was going to, and she didn't. And I said again, I said, look, don't appreciate that you asked me over last minute. And it's fine if it's spontaneous. If she didn't have a plan, that's fine. But when I'm trying to make a plan and she didn't bother to make a plan, and she just put it off and put it off and put it off, and then picked up the phone last minute and said, hey, now's good for me. Can you come over? And I was like, well, now's not good for me. That's kind of rude. It wasn't getting through. And I realized that she was disrespecting my time and disrespecting my wishes in not in asking her to do this small thing for me. And this sort of opened the door to seeing a whole lot of other things that were wrong. And it's when you start to assert yourself about these particular boundaries that those bigger things are revealed and their true nature is revealed. And this is a simple thing and a small thing that could easily have been dealt with, could easily have been adjusted, and she refused to do it. And you tell this story to somebody who doesn't understand narcissists, who doesn't understand what this signifies or the importance of it, and they'll say, well, it's just a small thing. They'll dismiss it. They'll brush it off, or why is it such a big deal? And that's the wrong approach. It's the wrong way to look at it. The fact is that it's an encroachment on my time. It's disrespectful of my time. I asked her to respect my time, and she disrespected me again. So that's disrespect on two levels: disrespecting my time and disrespecting my wishes. So what kind of friend does that? And so if you're talking to somebody about something similar to this, and they can't see that this is a huge disrespect because it's such a small thing, not that it's a small thing and it shouldn't matter, it's because it's such a small thing that it does matter. So, it's very hard to present something like this to someone who doesn't understand what narcissists are about, or, what they look like, and how that is a huge sign of disrespect. And you have made a boundary, and they are disrespecting that boundary. So it's disrespect on 3 levels. So boundaries, Dante Berry, do y'all pray to God, meditate to connect with God within, or a combination of both? Define God. Because I don't pray to God. I see the entirety of the universe and myself as part of God. So it's all one and the same. Answering questions you don't want is an empathetic response because you don't want the other person to feel rejected. People pleaser, it's up to the other person how they deal with that rejection. Yeah, that's excellent. I agree. Totally agree. Play and have fun, very important. Narcissism is an epidemic. It absolutely is. There's a lot of people talking about narcissism, narcissistic abuse, and narcissistic personality disorder, and it's important. It's important that they're talking about it. And I've noticed that there are people who get upset that that other people are talking about this. They're upset that lay people will diagnose someone as being NPD. I mean, you can't diagnose because you are not a medical professional. So even if you say that that person has NPD, that's your opinion, possibly and likely based off experience and knowledge that you've accumulated of that personality disorder. Is it accurate? Well, that's up to a professional to diagnose, but we should not be restricted from mentioning it or restricted from talking about it. We should not be restricted from pointing out the warning signs. We should not be restricted from saying, I think this person has NPD based off of these qualities, these behaviors, my experience, my knowledge. I don't think that that should be off the table. And I think it's really important for you to be able to detect these qualities and these behaviors and these red flags to protect yourself from getting involved and entangled with someone who is in that situation. Because if you are empathic or empathetic, a people pleaser, then you have a tendency to give, and they have a tendency to take. So it's difficult for you to get out of those situations without some abuse. And you don't want to get into that. So you need to be aware of it, but you also need to be aware of how that affects you and why you're involved with that, and why, those people are drawn to you and why you're drawn to them, and that whole dynamic. So education is incredibly important. Finger pointing and saying, well, this person is or isn't, it doesn't really matter. What's important is this person is exhibiting these traits and it's toxic, and it's a bad and negative experience for myself that I don't want to be involved in. So that's way more important. Being right or wrong about whether they have the disorder is irrelevant. So I don't understand why people get upset about people talking about NPD and people pointing out these traits. It's something that's important and needs to be said, just like pointing out traits about ADHD or traits about any kind of different, not even, and I don't like to call it mental. It's not a mental illness. It's just a difference in behavior, a difference in thinking, and there happens to be names for it. So, identifying those traits and what they mean and why people have them, you can develop empathy for them and an understanding as to why they are the way they are. And then you can choose to be involved with them or not. And you also have a better way of dealing with those people. And the more informed you are about it, the better you are at handling it, the better you are at understanding these people and how different people behave and how different people think, and having more compassion for their differences. Because for the most part, it's easy for us to generally assume that most people are the same as we are, and they're not. So it's until you know that they're different, you can't know that they're different. You have to learn that they're different. And difference is fine. There's nothing wrong with being different. But you need to have the education and awareness of their differences in order to interact with them on a better way. If you know someone has a learning disability in the sense that they're dyslexic, or they, view things in a different way, they see colors where you don't see them, they might assume everybody sees these colors. Of course they're going to, because that's their perception, that's their reality. Until they learn that not everybody sees colors where they do, then, they can't go around telling people, hey, do you see that purple thing there? And nobody else sees it. They don't understand why nobody else sees it. So it just helps us to relate to each other better. And, if you interact with somebody who's got NPD at work, you kind of have to, but you know that they have NPD, you know what to look out for. And so you can limit your exposure and prepare yourself for interacting with them so that they don't intrude on your space or your energy or what have you. So personally, I think it's beneficial. I think any education and all of that is beneficial. And a lot of these traits too cross over, this sort of a lack of empathy is an NPD trait, but it's also in the autism ADHD category. So you have to be very careful that you don't just slap on an assumption that somebody who doesn't quite understand empathy is NPD. They could have something else. They could just not be able to relate to you because that's foreign to them. It's not how they think. So I think that's hugely beneficial. It's certainly helped me understand how people are different, and I've developed more empathy for narcissists, although I don't want to have them in my life as much as possible. But whereas in the beginning, when I first discovered them, I was terrified of them. I was scared of them because I was involved in some pretty horrible interactions with some of them and never want to repeat it. So developing compassion and understanding has helped me to not be as afraid and to have a greater understanding and empathy for them. So, but that being said, doesn't mean I need to bring them into my life. Like we were saying before, picking and choosing where you put your energy and attention and who you associate with, because you need to protect your energy. That way, I suggest learning about narcissism and empaths. Sure, glad I have. I agree with you. The narcissistic empath dynamic is hugely important. And it also plays into the whole angel devil thing. And it's not literal angels and devils. I mean, it's this sort of wanting to help, and the givers and the takers. And so the takers will take and the givers will give. And that's why they're a natural fit for each other. But the toxicity comes in when givers give where the people who they're giving to don't want it, and the takers take and the people who are giving it don't want to give as much as they're giving. There's an imbalance. So that dynamic is hugely important to understand. And that's where you have to realize you have to start drawing boundaries and saying, okay, I'm overextending myself. I have to stop. And a lot of times narcissists are very good at spotting people who are givers, and they're very good at drawing out. So they'll sort of weasel their way in and make suggestions, or play the victim, or open themselves up to the opportunity for you to give where you may not want to, but because you care about this person, you want to help them. And so they kind of manipulate you into wanting to help, even when you don't have time or don't want to. And then you realize, hang on a second, what's going on here? I didn't want to do this. How did I get roped into this? And you realize that they manipulated you. So yeah, it's a sneaky dynamic you don't want to get involved in. Okay, it's 1:00. Any final comments or questions or topics you want to talk about? Because if not, I'm going to wrap this up because I got to get ready to go for Father's Day. No? Okay. Okay, well, I guess not. All right, well, thank you for tuning in early today. I hope you all have a fun and excellent Father's Day. And I'm wearing the flux on my t-shirt. I've worn this t-shirt before. It's the Star David, the tiger, eye of the tiger. So triangles. Excuse me. So yeah, it's a story. Oh, I already talked about the 007 poster in another video. So there's not really any story behind it. I just like the movie. I like the movie, and I did talk about meeting Daniel Craig, and anyway, yeah. So that was about it. There's not really any story behind it. Sorry. Have fun, Driftwood. Thank you very much. It's a lovely day, 22 degrees, so I hope it's nice where you are, and I will talk to you next week. Have a good time with your dad. Will do. Thanks, nobody knows. Bye, everybody.